The framework is really quite simple. Ask AI to become your personal board of directors, and it's available instantly for free, even at 2 a.m. Same situation, right? When you're facing things, but you get to ask the AI to become and look at your situation from 6 different lenses, and then you can synthesize it, right? And essentially, you're not outsourcing your judgment. You're expanding the quality of your thinking, and you're exercising better judgment.
What if you could reclaim hours of free time each week, create legacy building wealth, and devote more energy to your passion projects without giving up on your career as a life-saving MD? Dr. Vikram Raya is a functional cardiologist, high-performance coach, and real estate expert. Is here to give you the tools, strategies, and solutions you need to transform your life, unlock your limitless potential, and achieve greatness, all while freeing up your precious time. Welcome to Limitless MD. Let's dive in.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Limitless MD. I'm your host, Vikram Raya, and today we're going to talk about how AI can become your second brain. Let's just be honest here. If at this point you're not using AI, you're probably in the minority. There's probably less than 20-30% of the world who's not using AI at this point. So the question really is not if, but how, right? So I'll be honest, if ChatGPT and Claude disappeared tomorrow, I'd probably lose 20% of my productivity and probably 30% of my decisions would be less effective. That's how much it's helping me right now. And this is still AI in its infancy. It's still in its it's still in its growth phase. And it's not that AI is smarter than me or it's going to take over the world. It's more like, how is this amazing tool helping me become better, right? And level 1 usage of AI is really like a Google or a chat. People say instead of Googling something, they're like, hey, let me chat GPT it or something, and just ask a question. But that is level 1. I want to really focus today on how to become level 2/3 AI usage, which is getting AI to become more like a strategic thought partner, right? And the goal is, guys, I'm not an AI techie. I'm a cardiologist. I'm an entrepreneur. I own a real estate company, and I coach physicians, right? That is what I do. What I found is that AI has crept into pretty much every aspect of my life, whether that's travel, parenting, my health and fitness, biohacking, vitality, financial strategies and planning, contracts, legal negotiations, HR problems in the company, like employees and termination, hiring. And then it's also like global overview. Like sometimes, if you're in a funky mood, people joke about the AI therapist, but, it's not a bad idea to at least vent. The AI is what used to be the old school journaling. People used to journal their thoughts onto paper and sort of get some introspection and self-reflection. Here, you're able to put into a very intelligent machine, and it knows human behavior and psychology very well, and it can pick up patterns and reflect it back to you. That is really how I'm starting to see how AI is being used in my life and other people's lives. Back to the comparison with Google, right? Google and AI, right? Google gives you answers. AI helps you create conversations. Google retrieves info, but AI builds frameworks around what you're asking. And so the goal is, let's not use AI to think for me, but let's use AI to think with me. And this concept is called co-intelligence. I want you to write that concept down if you haven't heard of it yet. Ethan Malik wrote a book called Co-Intelligence, Living Working with AI. And here are some of the 5 points that he brought up in the book that I think would be applicable to many of you guys who are entrepreneurs, physicians, high performers. Number 1 is always invite AI to the table. Treat it as a thinking partner, not a tool. We've talked about that, right? It's really, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. What are your thoughts on this, right? So if you're trying to build a business or a side income, or you're trying to do market research or create content or financially model something, you can multiply your output, without multiplying your hours. It's essentially you have like a group of smart people on a team that's able to do all this work for you in very quick amount of time and present that data to you in a usable fashion. Next is, AI is really what they call on a jagged frontier, right? It is shockingly good in many things And in a few areas, it's not very good at all. And so you need to understand when to use it and when to not. That is part of the strategy, right? Where is it hallucinating? Where is it where it doesn't have full context to help you make a decision? Number 3 is be the human in the loop. What that means really is your human judgment, your human taste, your human accountability. That's what's important at the end. So take all the information from AI with a grain of salt, but then verify it, validate it, test it, and make sure that is what it's purporting to be and is actually going to help you move the needle forward. Number 4, treat AI like a person. And we're going to get into that a little bit later in the podcast, but really give it a context of or a persona that it can become so it can view that information through that lens, right? And, as a physician, you've had to do that. Like as a cardiologist, I had to look at things from a cardiology standpoint. Then if they had electrical issues, I had to look at it from an EP, electrophysiology standpoint. But if they happen to have heart failure, congestive heart failure standpoint, then internal medicine, I have to think about that from that angle. Infectious disease. So you're putting on all these different hats, different angles, different lenses to see the same problem. And similarly, as an AI, it can do that for you, right? And the last thing is this. So many people are waiting, hey, I'll wait till it gets better. I'll wait till it stops hallucinating. I'll wait till the next model comes out. But you need to start putting in the investment now to use AI. Otherwise, you're going to be left far behind. You should assume what Ethan Mollick says is that this is the worst AI you'll ever use, meaning today's models are the floor and not the ceiling, right? So know that at some point it's going to become so intelligent that it won't need so much context. You'll figure it out. So might as well get used to it, get the hang of it now as it continues to accelerate. So now let's talk about how I personally use AI. Specifically, I have about 20 to probably 40 conversations with AI a day, not just prompts, but conversations, right? And what are the ones I use it for strategic thinking. I use it for negotiations. I use it when I'm working with my coaching, limitless clients. I'm using it for difficult conversations, right? Self-reflection, decision-making in the future, journaling, right? Parenting, health, longevity, real estate, analyzing portfolios, right? This is how I use it. And then I'm going to go a little deeper with a couple of these. Like for strategic thinking, for example, what are 5 ways I can solve this? What assumptions am I making? If I was a board member of, a company, how would I act to this, right? And what happens is AI is going to give you optionality. It's going to reveal blind spots. It's going to show you, the full landscape of an intelligent decision maker versus the inevitable, pitfalls we make in our decision making. So, and I would say negotiations, right? Like you can say, one of my favorite negotiation books of all time is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. And so I'm like, hey, act like Chris Voss and help me negotiate this, right? And it uses all the techniques from the book, all the best techniques. You can even say, hey, use Harvard negotiation strategies, Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference, and Haas's negotiator strategies, and help me negotiate this employment contract. And lo and behold, it's going to be fantastic. And so I've done this, and literally the negotiations with this versus my own negotiations are probably at least 20 to 30% better. Sometimes I've had to have a difficult conversation with an employee or with an investor or, with a family member. And, I'm in my emotion sometimes, and my dumping it in there and then just letting it sort of marinate and simmer and then asking it to piece together a good strategy, it adds logic to my decision making instead of just the emotions, right? But the cool thing is, as these things are getting smarter and smarter, it validates your emotions as well. And I would say one of the coolest thing is health and longevity, right? I'm like creating a protocol where I'm trying to be, the healthiest person I can. And that involves, meal tracking, for example. So I take a picture of any meal and say, hey, feed me the calories. Let me know what this looks like. And I input into an app. I upload all my health data, medical data. And what you're doing is you're creating a digital twin online. And if you put all this together, then you can run scenarios and simulations to where you say, hey, based on what you know about me and all my data, would this be beneficial or not, or this supplement. So now you're getting personalized precision-based medicine versus just generic, recommendations. It helps in a lot of spreadsheet kind of work and business portfolio decision making. And so I don't know. I just find it very invaluable. Now the question really is, hey, how do you use it? Which one do you use? So there's a couple of big ones out there, right? ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Grok, right? Copilot, Perplexity. But the main ones that, in all my different circles all around the country and in the world, ChatGPT and Claude seem to be the top ones, right? So probably 85% of the world is using one of those two. So what I've found is I use ChatGPT more for broad brainstorming, more for a personal voice. Claude is very more nuanced, specific project strategies, and it also pushes back healthily, in a way. I find ChatGPT a little more compliant, more like not pandering, but makes me want to feel good, while Claude gives me appropriate feedback on things where it thinks I can do better. And then I use Fathom, which is an AI note-taking tool that comes to all my meetings. And those summaries now, you can actually sync those with Claude. And so it can have a cumulative intelligence of all your notes. And if you can connect your email, for example, you can have all your meetings and all your emails connected to like a Claude, for example. And that can really synthesize, hey, this is globally what's going on. This is your to-dos. It can sort of be like an executive assistant. It can be like a board of directors and really help you manage your life. Granola is another app that can just tag along as a note taker. And the cool thing about Granola is sometimes, these note takers are sort of very obvious and very sort of interfering with the meeting. Granola can run in the background. And another tool I'm using is called BEE, like the insect. It's a company that got bought by Amazon, and it's a wearable AI. So essentially, it's capturing all your conversations, everything, and starts giving you pattern recognition, analysis of your life. You can go back and see, what was captured, and I think the future is this kind of technology where your AI is going to eventually be part of your body or a wearable. I would say the biggest benefits I've seen in the last 6 months from AI is, I think, better decision making. The quality of your life is the quality of your decisions, right? Initially, you needed who's and super who's in your life to make really good decisions, right? You paid for talent, you paid for the best people. So now I can ask AI to act like those people. Essentially, it can become my personal board of directors, right? I think this is a signature concept that I want you to take with you when you start using AI tomorrow morning, right? The framework is really quite simple. Ask AI to become your personal board of directors, and it's available instantly for free, even at 2 a.m. And here's how it works, really. Like, let's say you're a venture capitalist. Let's say you have a company and you need to make a deal, but you want the advice from a venture capitalist. You can say, hey, act as a venture capitalist. What do you see in this deal that I might be too close to see, Or let's say you need to make a decision with a bunch of family members. Hey, act as a behavioral psychologist. What cognitive biases might be driving my thinking here, right? Or if you're trying to prep for a pitch to roll out to clients, you can say, hey, act as my most skeptical client. Why would you say no? And give me 10 reasons to overcome that no, When you're a CEO of a company, you're like, hey, act as an executive coach. What question am I not asking my team members, right? Or if you're really thinking about health and vitality, hey, act as a Navy SEAL. Get me into elite fitness in the next 6 weeks. Or my background is Hindu, so that's my religious belief, and so I'm like, hey, act as a spiritual deity that I believe from, and help me overcome these challenges, right? It is wild what you can do with this thing. So really, same situation, right? On when you're facing things, but you get to ask the AI to become and look at your situation from 6 different lenses, and then you can synthesize it, right? And essentially, you're not outsourcing your judgment, you're expanding the quality of your thinking, and you're exercising better judgment, right? And as I mentioned to you, we as physicians used to do this in the hospital all day long, right? We had to think about it from different angles. Now your AI can also do this for you. And the other thing I want to mention is when you ask the AI a question, you don't want to stop at the first answer, right? So let's say, hey, I want to take my family on a trip to Italy for 2 weeks. Here are the things I'm interested in doing. What do you recommend? And it's, it spits out a bunch of answers, right? But now you're like, hey, I'm traveling with my elderly mother, who has balance issues. How would you adjust that itinerary? Great. Then it's like, hey, my kids are in their last years of high school, and I really want to make this memorable. Give me some like key, magic moments I can create with them. Boom. So now I'm at question 4, right? Then I'm like, all right, hey, look, my budget is, I thought it was going to be 30,000, but no, it's going to actually have to be 15,000, right? How can I really use my capital wisely on this trip? Boom. Now then it's like, okay, we're going to do Airbnbs for here, and then maybe the hotel, right? And then finally it's like, hey, you know what? I want to really capture this, because I'm an influencer. Help me integrate, the top places where I can, do my Instagram posts or whatever. And then it adds that in, right? So, but it's like layer after layer after layer after layer until it gets you a high quality product that you're like, wow, this is it. This is the answer. And if I had to give you 5 prompts, worth memorizing, I would say number 1 is act as, and give it a perspective, like a CEO, a cardiologist, a behavioral psychologist, a venture capital, a board of directors, a spiritual minister, one of the top, chefs in the world, whatever that is. Number 2 is challenge my assumptions, right? This sentence unlocks more insights than almost anything else. And say it after every major recommendation you receive. Number 3 is give me 5 alternatives, right? Usually the first 1 or 2 answers is obvious, but it's usually the third, the fourth, the fifth that are like pretty impressive that you haven't thought about yet. And then the other one is, what's the strongest argument against what I just said? This is where you're like figuring out what's the pushback you're going to get already and being prepared for it. And then sometimes, we think in like very narrow time windows. We think about, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year down the road, right? But sometimes the perspective you want to have is, you're sitting, you're 80 years old, you're in a rocking chair, you're sitting back and you're looking back at your life and say, and you're really making the decision from that perspective, right? So say, hey, what would the 80-year-old version of me think about this decision, right? You're collapsing the time horizon instantaneously. You cut out the short-term noise and you're really thinking about what matters. So I hope that was helpful. I recommend, again, just getting over your fear, getting over your frustration, and just learning to embrace this as a necessary tool. Like, if you don't know how to use Excel, you're far behind in the world in general. If you don't know how to use Microsoft Word, if you didn't know how to use Google, if you don't know how to use a computer, right? Or if a smartphone, this is the next thing that everyone has to use. It's a tool, and it can be a part of you. It can enhance you. And really, AI isn't replacing human intelligence. It's amplifying human potential, right? So this is going to be key. So remember the concepts of the board of directors. Remember some of the prompts. Learn to get familiar with 1 or 2 of these LLMs. And finally, realize that this AI that we're using is essentially the floor, and it only gets better from here. And so with that, my friends, wishing you an amazing rest of 2026. And until next time, be phenomenal.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Limitless MD. If you found value from this episode, I encourage you to share this episode with a friend and let me know by leaving a review. For more information, make sure you check out the links in the show notes below or simply visit vikramraya.com. Until next time, be phenomenal.